Story 1. Like a week ago, but only because I sneak attacked him and literally threw my whole body on top of him, whispering, "Let it happen, shoo, shoo," while he struggled to get away, boxing my ears. But that's just our dynamic relationship. Story 2. I do not remember ever hugging my father. It makes me sad that he was so standoffish about it. I hug my sons every time I see them. They need to know I care about and love them. Story 3. It's been a while. Probably sometime before my dad told me I'm out of his life. As a dad, though, I make it a point to hug my children every day, multiple times a day. There's always time for a hug. Story 4. I'm a 45-year-old man. I have one daughter. I simply can't understand this thread. Are there really so many out there who haven't had a normal father? I tell my daughter 15 times a day that she is the love of my life and that I love her. I get really homesick when I'm forced to spend the night away from home for work, 1 to 3 nights a month. I don't know how I would be able to carry on living if I weren't allowed to hug her every day. And I consider myself to have a full social life with friends, dinners 3 to 4 times a month with friends, and vacations 6 to 7 weeks a year with different friends and family. What kind of weird relationships do dads have with their children in your country? Story 5. Tonight, I said, "Good night, Dad. I love you." Gave him a hug and kiss on the cheek, and we parted ways for the evening. I'm still a young adult, so I live at home, and I'm lucky enough to get the occasional hug good night from him. I'll be hugging him extra tight for you all tomorrow. Story 6. Near Christmas. My dad and I were never very open about our love for each other until a bit over a year ago, when he said goodbye on the phone by saying a very awkward, "Love you." I don't know what made him choose to say it right then, but ever since we always say, "I love you" to each other when we hang up, and we always have very awkward hugs when we say goodbye in person. Even a year later, we're not good at it, but it doesn't matter. Story 7. This afternoon, he came over to help my husband lift a few heavy things and put them in our garage. My 18-month-old loves to give group hugs, so she, my dad, and I hugged, and I gave him a separate hug after that. Story 8. I hugged and kissed him as he lay dying, and again after he had passed. This was February of 2024. Thank God for him, the kindest, purest soul this world ever knew. Thank God I had him as my father. Story 9. This afternoon, when I went to visit with him and my mom after work, he is 75 years old and was diagnosed with cancer about 5 years ago. I hug him every chance I get. Time is precious. Story 10. Today, my middle child was in a Missoula play. My parents came, and my dad gave me $20 to pay for our tickets. It hurts him to sit for long periods of time, but he waited the whole hour to see his 6-year-old grandson on the stage. My mom let my wiggly 3-year-old sit on her lap for the whole show. Hugged them good night. My parents truly are the best. Story 11. Probably 17 years ago, he moved cross-country, and I could never afford to visit. Dad died about 14 years ago. He committed suicide. It's getting harder to remember his voice. I have a couple of pictures and 0 videos. God damn it, why did I click on this before gonna sleep? Story 12. The last time I saw him was in 2020, right before the borders closed. He died in 2021, 3 days before my daughter was born, 1 month before my son died. I knew my son was sick, but my dad wasn't sick, except I've been told afterwards his heart was broken by my son being so sick and not being able to protect him or me. He didn't kill himself, but it was so fast and so weird. I find myself thinking of it as him ducking out early and taking a backroad shortcut to beat my son to the afterlife and be sure there was someone there he knew, watching him for me until I can get there. Is that mental? Sure, but I am mental by this point. Story 13. 2 weeks ago was the last time we saw each other in person. I'll be meeting with him this weekend again, where we will probably hug at least twice. I was blessed with one of the best dads on the planet. I don't think I could have asked for anyone else. Story 14. Like many others here, right before he died, he was the strongest man I've ever known, and he fought until the end. I hugged him and lied and told him it was okay and that he could rest. I'd burn worlds to hug him again. Story 15. Never, because I have never met him. My mom had me as a teen, and he abandoned that relationship as soon as he knew she was pregnant. He's never wanted anything to do with me. Story 16, probably 2013, before he went completely off the deep end and started treating me like garbage. We do not talk anymore. I do not envision hugging in our future either. Story 17, I cannot for the life of me remember. I do remember him being sucked up into that tornado, however, while I did nothing to help him. Man of Steel, also known as Superman. Story 18, never. He cheated on my mom when she was pregnant and left her before I was born. He almost killed her by pushing her off a moped scooter. Unfortunately, my mom passed away from cancer at 55, and he is still alive but never tried to contact me. I'm a 36-year-old female, married now, have 2 kids, and a successful career. I don't care about him. I have never met him or seen him in real life. If he were to be in public, I would walk right by him because I don't really know what he looks like. So very, very sad. Anyway, story 19, never. He couldn't get over his disappointment of having a daughter, which ultimately caused my parents to separate on my first birthday. After years of him voicing his disappointment in my gender and the child support payments, I stopped visiting him when I was around 12 or 13 years old. Story 20. Now that I think of it, I can't remember. To be honest, we were never really comfortable with each other. I am very uncomfortable hugging him because we are not close at all. We are more like co-workers than father and daughter. Story 21. He died in 2002. I was 18. I'm not sure when I hugged him prior to his death. I just don't remember anymore. I guess probably at the end of May that year when I graduated high school, for sure. That was 22 years ago. Story 22. Today he is 80 on Wednesday, and I got to see him today for a few hours. I will be seeing him next week to celebrate his birthday. I never take this for granted. He is my favorite person in the world, and I would be lost without him. I read some of these comments and am so heartbroken for all those who are not in this position. I don't know what I'll do when this day comes for me. I dread it with every fiber of my being. Story 23. I don't have a memory of hugging him ever since I was a kid. He was cruel to us and always prioritized himself. I even gave him gifts when I was older, but he never opened them. He just put them somewhere in the house where I could see them every day, unopened. Story 24. A week ago, I had a very rocky relationship for years and didn't speak at all for most of it. In the last year, we've mended our relationship. I didn't realize how much stress I was carrying around constantly hating him. I'm glad he has come to accept me and respect me, and we can have a great relationship now. Story 25. I cannot even remember. I was likely a child before the age of 5. My parents got divorced and he abandoned us. It felt horrible watching every other kid with a dad I did not have. Story 26. Wednesday night, he and I went to get pizza and catch up since I hadn't seen him since New Year's Eve. Yes, I spent my New Year's with my dad, and my fiancée, his girlfriend, and friends and family. He's 76, and I'm 46. He's the best. Story 27. 7 a.m. on the day he died. Not because he was dying. His death was unexpected, but just because he was my dad and I was hugging him goodbye. I'll never regret that the last words to my father were, "I love you." Story 28. Last week, actually. That guy is one of the most unappreciated people I know. Works hard every day to come home to an unappreciative, grumpy family. Story 29. Right before he died unexpectedly, he was leaving, and I made sure I hugged him goodbye. Little did I know that would be the last time I would see him again. Story 30. 38 years ago, he passed in February 1987 at 66 years old. When I was 26, he only lasted a year and a half after a cancer diagnosis. He had retired at age 58 after 38 years as an educator and administrator. 2 years after that, and serious theology and other studies, he was ordained deacon in our Ukrainian Catholic eparchy. He came to Canada from Ukraine at 9 years old. Gosh, I miss him. Story 31. Not entirely sure I ever have. It's probably been at least 30 years. My parents split when I was 3, and he became the stereotypical every other weekend dad. He was only around when it was convenient to be. Our relationship is more like he's a close family friend, but not a dad. Story 32. I don't honestly remember. I think since I was a kid, we fell apart. We rarely even talk as I live abroad, and we were never in that kind of father and son friendship. Story 33. Before I found out that he had inappropriate relations with his sister while married to my mom, ejaculated on the basement carpet almost every night, kept his unhygienic personal item in the same drawer as his toothbrush, and also caused an ant infestation in the house because the ants kept getting into the drawer to reach his personal item, and faked prostate cancer and multiple heart attacks to try and stop my mom from leaving him. He's basically the family joke now. None of us want anything to do with him because his pornography addiction completely ruined his life and he values it more than anything else. Story 34. Never. I've never met him. I reached out once, but he didn't care. We had a few conversations and I asked if he wanted to meet me. His answer was no. I haven't spoken to him since. Story 35. Yesterday, I just bought my first car, and he hugged me before we parted at the local petrol station. I'll probably hug him tomorrow as well. He's coming over to get a borrowed ladder back from mom. Story 36. About 15 years ago, I've only seen him 3 times since he walked out on my mom and me because I'm a girl when I was only 6 months old. He wants nothing to do with me or my half-sister he had a few years later, simply because of our gender. He's a piece of scum. Story 37. This past Christmas, he was a single dad who raised me and my brother and taught me everything I know about being a good parent. I wish I saw him more often. Story 38. Yesterday, around the neck from behind, and for the second time ever, I got a good chokehold. We both do martial arts, so that's just how we roll, pun intended, if you know. Story 39. Sometime in February or March of 2023, he had come up again to see my then 18-month-old. He died in a motor vehicle and biking crash about a month later. I miss him. Story 40. I will never hug my father, as a cybersecurity comrade played hoaxes for so long. His last message will be a brother saying disgusting things about hurting my sister as he dies. Story 41. Maybe when I was a kid, my father and I didn't have the best relationship and lived more like roommates than father and son for most of my life until he passed away 19 months ago. Story 42. It will be 15 years ago in a month that he died, so around about that. Still miss the old bastard. I've always had questions for him, often practical ones, usually about the garden. A couple of years ago, I found out he had a whole secret daughter via ancestry deoxyribonucleic acid. That really brought up some more questions. Story 43. Honestly don't remember, don't have a great relationship. Told him we were pregnant with my oldest son and haven't really heard from him since. That son is now over 10 years old. Story 44. December 18th, 2022. He passed while I was hugging him. My dad died in my arms. I think I am incredibly lucky that this happened. Sad? Absolutely, yes. If I die letting my children know how much I love them, I will be happy. If you have the relationship with your parents, hug them often. Story 45. Last time I saw him was about a month ago. I will see him again next weekend and I will hug him again. You never know when you may hug your dad for the last time. Story 46. When I was in 3rd grade, he just grabbed me while I was crying, and that made me scream in fear. He gave me post-traumatic stress disorder when I was 10 from something similar, and I can barely even give him a high five anymore. Story 47. About a week and a half ago, when he dropped me off at the airport for a trip, I can't quite remember if I hugged him when I got home because I was very tired and feeling pretty gross from traveling all day. I will probably hug him next time I see him, though. I love him very much. Story 48. I honestly don't remember. We see each other daily and are together a lot, but we are not a huggy family. If I were to just randomly hug him tomorrow, his response would probably be something along the lines of, "Oh no, who died?" Or an awkward pat on the shoulder with a confused, there. Story 49. When I had to go back to work after Christmas break, I was glad we got over our fight. Even though I had to endure the unpleasant situation, it was worth it for the family peace. I am 45, and I have to start thinking about not having them around at some point. If you can, make amends and hug your parents. Story 50. 7.5 months since he passed. Not a day goes by that I wish it was longer. I actually think he sends me signs to let me know he's okay. And maybe I needed to see this post. Rest in peace, Dallas Ray. Always in my heart. Story 51. Over 20 years ago, I just found out last week that he died back in 2018. I didn't feel a thing other than a complete lack of surprise that no one even attempted to contact me when he died. Story 52. Yesterday, when we visited him in the care home, sadly, they didn't tell us that there is currently a COVID outbreak of 17 people there before we came in to visit. So we hurried to leave once we knew. He wasn't positive. Hopefully, we're not either. Story 53. January 1st. He just had a triple bypass done on his heart on the 3rd, so he's not huggable again yet. I did kiss his head when I saw him today, though. Story 54. July 2024. I live roughly 8 hours away, and I absolutely cannot stand the area he lives in. He hates it too, but they come down to my area to vacation once a year. This post kind of hit me hard, though. It's been a while, and normally I don't think about it until plans of seeing them come close. I'm going to give him a call tonight.